You cannot. I refuse you to insult Michael. He's a friend of mine. I love him, and I don't like people making fun of him.
During filming of The Whiz in 1977, Diana Ross reportedly spent the night at Michael Jackson's apartment. Her team couldn't find her the next morning. She was 33. He was 19. Neither of them ever explained what happened that night, but people close to them believed they were secretly engaged twice. When Michael died, Diana was chosen to raise his children if anything happened to his mother. That choice said everything. Now, decades later, Diana Ross is finally talking about Michael Jackson. What she's revealing is devastating. Michael Jackson wrote his last will in 2002 and tucked something inside it that stunned people years later. He named Diana Ross as the secondary guardian of his 3 children, Prince, Paris, and Blanket. He placed her above Debbie Rowe, even though Rowe was the biological mother of 2 of them. When the will became public in 2009, after his death, the world paused for a moment. It felt strange at first, yet it made sense once you followed the thread of their bond. Michael had known Diana since the 1970s. She had guided him when he was still a young star trying to understand fame. She pushed him. She protected him. She shaped him. So when he signed that will, he was not choosing a symbol. He was choosing someone he trusted with everything that mattered to him. That choice said more than any interview or tribute ever could. Years later, in 2019, when the documentary Leaving Neverland hit the world like a storm, Diana Ross stayed quiet at first. People wondered if she would say anything at all. Then one morning she opened Twitter after years of silence and wrote a single line that echoed everywhere. She said she believed and trusted Michael Jackson, that he was a magnificent, incredible force in her life. Her words came at a moment when the debate about his legacy was burning hot. She knew that. Still, she spoke. It was one of her very few public statements about him after he died in 2009. It showed a loyalty that never faded. Even when his name carried weight and controversy, she still held on to the bond they built long before he became the most famous entertainer on Earth. That connection went even deeper than fans expected. In 1993, during his interview with Oprah Winfrey, Michael said something that startled millions. He admitted he had always had a crush on Diana Ross. He said it softly, with that quiet shyness he carried everywhere. People had seen their closeness for years, but never like this. His confession revealed a side of him he rarely showed. Ross had mentored him from his early Motown days. She guided his public image and helped him understand performance. When he said he had feelings for her, it added a new layer to their story. It made their partnership feel more emotional, more tangled, and more human. Their closeness created stories that followed them for decades. One of the most talked about moments came from the Whiz set in 1977. During filming, Diana Ross reportedly spent the night at Michael Jackson's New York apartment. Her team could not reach her the next morning, which fed rumors of something more than friendship. At the time, Michael was 19, still quiet and almost fragile in the way he moved through life. Ross was 33 and already a global superstar. Neither of them ever confirmed anything. They never explained it. They never denied it. The silence created its own legend, and fans kept the story alive long after The Whiz premiered in October 1978. Those rumors stretched into something even bigger. Some close to them believed they had been secretly engaged twice. One rumored engagement was said to be in the late 1970s, around the time of The Whiz. Another was said to have happened in the early 1980s, during the height of Thriller. In both stories, it was Ross who ended things, overwhelmed by fame and the direction of her own career. None of this was confirmed by either of them, yet the whispers kept growing because the affection between them was so clear. If the stories were true, it would explain Michael's devotion to her. It would explain why she was written into his will in a place no one expected. Her life held its own twists long before she met him. When Diana Ross was born on March 26, 1944, her mother chose the name Diane. A simple clerical error turned Diane into Diana on her birth certificate. That typo followed her forever. It ended up printed in early Supreme's liner notes and became part of Motown history. She later laughed about it, saying she only learned much later that she was supposed to be Diane. Yet the world never knew her that way. The mistake shaped her identity in a strange and almost magical way. Her childhood home also carried pieces of music history. She grew up at 635 Belmont Street in Detroit's North End, a modest brick house built in 1913. And right in that same neighborhood lived Smokey Robinson. Diana met him when she was 8. Their families stayed close as the kids grew up. That house was renovated in 2018 and listed for $132,000. But to Motown fans, it is priceless. Growing up next to Smokey meant Diana was surrounded by music before she even realized how deeply it would define her life. But her early years were not easy. In 1951, when she was 7, her mother Ernestine suffered from tuberculosis and nearly died. It was a terrifying illness then, especially in working-class Detroit. Diana and her siblings were sent to live with grandparents in Bessemer, Alabama. They stayed there for years until Ernestine recovered. Diana returned to Detroit around 14. That move broke her childhood in half. It created distance, fear, and a sense of uncertainty that never fully left her. Still, her family pushed through it, and she carried that survival spirit into every stage of her career. Life changed again when her family moved into the Brewster Douglas housing projects. She was 14. The projects were huge and filled with working-class families trying to keep up with Detroit's shifting economy. But they also held the early sparks of Motown. Many future stars lived there. For Diana, it became a training ground for courage and creativity. The environment shaped her musical instincts and her connection to the community. The buildings were demolished in the 2010s, yet the stories from those hallways still echo through Motown history. Back then, Diana did not dream of holding a microphone. She wanted to design clothes. She attended Cass Technical High School and studied fashion design, millinery, and pattern making. She planned to become a fashion designer, not a singer. Later in life, she used those skills to shape her stage image. She created outfits that matched her voice and presence. Most people never knew that her sense of style came from technical training rather than pure instinct. Her rise in music began in 1959 when she was 15. She formed the Primettes with Florence Ballard, Mary Wilson, and Betty McGlone. They were the sister act to the Primes, who later became the Temptations. All 4 girls came from the Brewster Douglas projects. They sang at talent shows and sock hops, gathering small crowds that slowly grew. Milton Jenkins mentored them and helped them step into the local music scene. When Barbara Martin replaced Betty McGlone in 1960, the final group that would one day become the Supremes took shape. Their first single came out on the Lupine label that same year. Barbara Martin stayed with them until early 1962. She left because she was pregnant, stepping away just before the group's major rise. Her exit shaped everything that followed. Diana, Florence, and Mary remained as a trio. That trio became legendary. Martin stayed out of the spotlight and never rejoined the group even as their fame exploded. Their journey almost ended before it began. Berry Gordy rejected the Primettes several times. He told them to finish high school and come back later. Diana kept pushing. She kept showing up at Hitsville, USA, until Gordy gave them another chance. After their 4th audition in January 1961, Gordy finally signed them. They had already won a talent show in Windsor, Ontario, and that helped convince him. Gordy later admitted he almost refused to work with them because Diana was stubborn and had strong ideas. Her determination, the same quality that annoyed him at first, became the engine that drove their success. Still, the early years were rough. Their first 9 singles failed to chart. People inside Motown jokingly called them the no-hit Supremes. They kept trying and kept missing. Then everything changed in June 1964. They released Where Did Our Love Go? And it shot to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It stayed there for 2 weeks. It was the beginning of 12 #1 hits, and the moment Diana Ross became a name everyone knew. The group had been close to being dropped before that release. One song saved everything and opened the doors to a future no one imagined. In June 1965, the Supremes stepped into a moment no one had seen before. Their streak of 5 straight #1 hits felt like lightning moving through the Billboard Hot 100, starting when Where Did Our Love Go reached the top in July 1964. Then Baby Love followed in October, and Come See About Me rose in December. By the time Stop, In the Name of Love hit #1 in March 1965, everyone felt the momentum building. And then, on June 12, 1965, Back in My Arms Again climbed to #1 and topped both the pop and R&B charts at the same time. With that, the Supremes became the first group in history to pull off 5 consecutive #1 singles. They even passed the record the Beatles had set, and suddenly, the world saw 3 young women from Detroit stand as Motown's brightest stars. All of this magic had a strong engine behind it. Holland Dozier Holland shaped the sound that carried the Supremes through the middle of the 60s. Between late 1963 and early 1968, they wrote and produced 18 singles for the group. Out of those, 14 entered the top 10 and 10 reached #1. Their songs had melodies that stayed in your head and lyrics people could hold on to. They created something polished, but still full of feeling. You Keep Me Hanging On, Baby Love, Stop in the Name of Love, and so many others came from their hands and helped the Supremes earn more #1 singles in 5 years than any other Motown act. For a moment, they set the sound of the era. Then everything shifted in 1967. Motown officially renamed the group Diana Ross and the Supremes. Berry Gordy believed Ross deserved top billing, especially after Florence Ballard was replaced by Cindy Birdsong. Now, Motown could charge higher performance fees because the act was framed around a lead star with supporting voices. This name change was more than a simple label. It signaled Ross's rise and the beginning of a clear path toward a solo career. But it also created tension. The other members felt the spotlight sliding away from them, and the group's unity grew fragile. By mid-1967, the new name was locked in, and the future became even more centered on Ross. Their final #1 as a group came in 1969 with Someday We Will Be Together. The surprise was that Mary Wilson and Cindy Birdsong did not sing on the track. Berry Gordy wanted the song to stand as Diana Ross's unofficial solo debut. Producer Johnny Bristol recorded the backing track and ended up singing ad-libs with Ross during the session. When the song reached #1 in December 1969, it quietly marked the end of an era. It was ironic that their last big hit carried almost none of the original Supremes' voices. By the time Ross left in early 1970, the Supremes had already sold more than 50 million records worldwide. Their singles made up more than 46 million of that total, including 34 million sold inside the United States. Every hit from the classic years between 1964 and 1970 sold at least 400,000 copies, and they collected 19 million selling singles. These numbers pushed them beyond every other Motown act. Their songs traveled across borders, broke racial barriers, and shaped global pop music. When Ross stepped away to begin her solo era, the legacy the Supremes left behind was already carved deep into music history. Yet behind the fame stood Florence Ballard, the woman who built the group from the start. In 1958, she recruited her best friend Mary Wilson, and together they joined Betty McGlown and Diana Ross to form the Primettes inside Detroit's Brewster Douglas housing project. When they signed with Motown in 1961, Ballard suggested their new name, the Supremes. She sang on 16 top 40 hits and 10 #1 singles. But as time passed, Gordy pushed Ross to the front. By 1966, Ballard was feeling her place fade. She sang less, spoke less in interviews, and watched the group she formed drift away from her. Things grew worse in 1967. After Ballard missed several performances because of drinking problems, Motown replaced her with Cindy Birdsong. Her final show with the Supremes took place at the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas in June 1967. She believed the break was temporary and tried to return, but Motown made her removal permanent. Birdsong officially took her place on July 2, 1967, at another Flamingo show. Ballard left the group and stepped into a life full of setbacks. Depression, alcoholism, and legal trouble followed her, while the group she created continued as international stars. Her exit changed the course of Supreme's history forever. The pain did not end there. In July 1971, Ballard sued Motown for $8.7 million. She claimed that Gordy and Ross pushed her out and that she was owed royalties. She also argued that Motown destroyed her solo career after she left. The case was dismissed, and she received nothing. From there, her life fell apart. Her marriage collapsed, her home went into foreclosure, and addiction continued to weigh on her. Even her lawyer, Leonard Bone, was indicted for embezzling money from her and other clients. The lawsuit had been her last attempt to reclaim her future, but the courts did not back her. On February 22, 1976, Florence Ballard died from a coronary thrombosis at the age of 32. She had only $7.80 left in her bank account. Many Motown figures attended her funeral, but her death was overshadowed by the glamorous success of her former groupmates. Ross was starring in films and releasing hit albums at the same time. At the service, Ross arrived in a limousine and entered with a loud, emotional cry that echoed through the church. Some mourners booed her, believing the display came too late. That moment captured the complicated bond between Ross and Ballard and the deep hurt that had never fully healed. It became one of the most discussed scenes in the group's history. Meanwhile, behind the music and behind the spotlight, Diana Ross and Gordy carried a secret. Their romance began in April 1965. Insiders became aware when the two extended their stay in Paris during a European tour. Gordy had divorced his second wife in 1964 and kept the relationship quiet. The silence did not stop the tension. He was both the CEO of Motown and the manager of the Supremes, and people whispered that Ross gained special treatment. Others argued she was already talented enough to earn her rise. Either way, this relationship shaped the atmosphere inside the label during its most iconic years. The romance lasted until 1971. By then, Ross wanted commitment. She asked Gordy to either marry her or let her go. According to Marvin Gaye, Gordy told a friend he could not marry her because she was as selfish as he was. They separated, but kept a professional connection. Gordy struggled to move on, while Ross focused on launching her solo career. Their breakup became another turning point in Motown's story. 2 months later, everything changed again. Ross discovered she was pregnant. On January 22, 1971, She married music executive Robert Ellis Silberstein. She was 2 months pregnant at the time. Robert accepted the situation and agreed to raise the child even though he knew the truth. People inside Motown whispered that Gordy was the real father, but the public knew nothing for years. Diana's daughter Rhonda was born in August 1971. Robert raised her as his own, and for nearly 13 years, Rhonda believed he was her biological father. When she finally learned the truth, it came as a shock. Her face had always resembled Gordy's, and after seeing old photos side by side, everything made sense. Even after the truth came out, Rhonda kept calling Gordy Uncle Barry out of respect for Robert, and Diana worked carefully to keep peace between everyone. Rhonda eventually built a close relationship with Gordy, while staying connected to the man who raised her. Their family story became a rare example of love holding together even after secrets surfaced. Diana Ross stepped into her solo journey in April 1970, and it happened only days after her final show with the Supremes. Her first single was Reach Out and Touch Somebody's Hand. Nicholas Ashford and Valerie Simpson wrote it, produced it, and shaped it with the kind of warmth they were known for. When it reached number 20 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 7 on the R&B chart, people called it solid, yet Motown had hoped for something bigger. Critics expected a huge explosion for her debut, but the song carried a simple message about unity that touched people in a different way, and it grew stronger whenever she performed it live. So even though it was not the smash they wanted, it quietly opened the door for the legend she was about to become, and it showed how her voice could lift a message straight into someone's heart. Soon, the world saw her take a bolder step. A few months later, she released Ain't No Mountain High Enough in 1970. It was a dramatic reimagining of the Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell classic, stretched to more than 6 minutes and shaped with spoken word, rising emotion, and gospel fire. Motown trimmed it to 3 minutes 22 seconds for radio, and that version raced to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It became her first solo chart topper and earned a Grammy nomination. Ashford and Simpson sang background, the Funk Brothers played, and session musicians from New York filled it with power. The success proved she could stand alone, and it gave her the blueprint for her own superstar identity. By 1976, she felt the pull of a new sound. Love Hangover arrived that year and pushed her into disco, even though she was unsure at first. Producer Hal Davis encouraged her to try something different, and she trusted the moment. The track started slow and smooth, then opened into a wild dance rhythm that captured the rush of falling in love under nightclub lights. It spent 2 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became a nightclub favorite. Critics said she had dropped her polished pop image and tapped into something raw and alive, and people loved seeing her shift into a new era with such ease. Then came a turning point in 1980. Her album Diana, released on May 22nd that year, brought her into the world of Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards from Chic. She told them she wanted to turn her career upside down and have fun again. The result was a sharp, funky record, shaped by the New York sound of the time. Upside Down spent 4 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, while I'm Coming Out became an anthem that spoke to freedom and identity. Rodgers said the idea came after he saw drag queens dressed as Diana in a club. That moment told him everything about her impact. The album proved she could evolve with the times and still own the spotlight. Only a year later, she reached another peak. Endless Love with Lionel Richie came out in 1981 and became one of the best-selling duets in history. It stayed at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 9 straight weeks and sold more than 2 million copies in the United States. It topped charts in Canada, Brazil, Australia, South Africa, and many more places. Over time, it gathered more than 435 million streams on Spotify. It became the biggest-selling single of her career and appeared everywhere, from radio to movies to television. The world embraced it as a timeless love song and another sign of her global influence. Her journey did not stop with music. In 1972, she stepped into her first film, Lady Sings the Blues, and everything around it shook. She played Billie Holiday and earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress. She became the first black actress to receive an Oscar nomination for a debut role. The film gathered 5 nominations overall, including Best Original Screenplay and Art Direction. Critics praised her presence, yet debated the film's script and tone, calling it uneven. But at the 45th Academy Awards in 1973, she stood in a historic moment. She lost to Liza Minnelli from Cabaret, but the nomination itself marked a major shift in Hollywood and widened the door for black actresses who followed. Something even deeper happened that same year. In 1973, she and Cicely Tyson became the first 2 black women nominated for Best Actress in a single Oscar ceremony. Tyson was nominated for Sounder and Diana for Lady Sings the Blues. Before them, only Dorothy Dandridge had been nominated back in 1955. 98 years after the first Academy Awards, that moment carried real weight. Their performances showed the range of black talent, and their presence signaled a change in what Hollywood would have to recognize from that point forward. Her recognition continued to rise. She won the Golden Globe for Most Promising Newcomer in 1973 for Lady Sings the Blues. The film's soundtrack reached #1 on the Billboard 200 for 2 weeks and sold more than 2 million copies. It featured her interpretations of Billie Holiday's music and became her only solo album to reach the top of the Billboard 200. Its success blended film and music in a way that lifted her into a new level of fame and showed how powerful she could be across different worlds. In 1975, she starred in Mahogany, a fashion drama directed by Gordy. She played Tracy, a young designer who rises into the world of high fashion and modeling. The soundtrack delivered theme from Mahogany, Do You Know Where You're Going To, which became her third #1 single in January 1976. Bob Mackie designed the film's costumes, and they became part of her visual legacy. Even though reviews were mixed, the movie remained a milestone in black cinema. Its style and ambition influenced trends long after the decade ended. Then came The Whiz in 1978. She took the role of Dorothy, even though she was 33, and people questioned the choice since Dorothy is usually played as a young girl. The film featured an all-black cast and created a different take on The Wizard of Oz. It also changed music history. During filming, Michael Jackson met Quincy Jones, and that meeting led to the creation of Off the Wall and the rise of Jackson's solo genius. The Whiz was not a box office success, yet its cultural impact remained huge, and Diana's willingness to take that risk opened new doors again for black performers. Her connection with Michael Jackson went even further. In his 2002 will, he named Diana Ross as the secondary guardian of his children, Prince, Paris, and Blanket. Katherine Jackson was the first choice, but if she could not serve, the role moved to Diana. Many were surprised, especially because Ross had her own public controversies, including 2 DUI arrests and a 1999 airport detention after a clash with a security officer at Heathrow. Yet Jackson trusted her. He believed she would protect his children and never exploit them. That trust became real in 2012 when Katherine temporarily lost custody. Courts followed the will and officially notified Diana as the next in line, showing how seriously Jackson meant that choice. The will also made something else clear. Michael Jackson intentionally left out Debbie Rowe, the biological mother of Prince and Paris. The document stated that he intentionally omitted her. His estate went into a trust for his mother and his children, leaving Roe outside of both assets and custody. Many legal experts called it unusual since biological mothers are almost always included in custody plans, but Jackson made his decision with purpose, and the media examined it closely when it became public. Why Diana Ross? His biographer Stacey Brown explained that Jackson believed she would protect the children from publicity and from anyone seeking money or fame through them. She had raised 5 children of her own and carried a reputation as a mother who kept family first. Even with the controversies around her, Jackson believed her judgment was steady. His attorney Stacey Phillips said naming her was a deep honor and showed how much he trusted her. He made the decision carefully because his children were the most important part of his life. The seriousness of that choice became clear in 2012 when Katherine Jackson briefly lost custody, and Diana Ross was notified as the next guardian. Reporters watched closely, wondering whether Diana would step in. The moment confirmed that Jackson's will carried real legal weight long after his death, and it showed how fully his trust in her had been written into law. Even years later, the connection remained visible. In 2019, after the documentary Leaving Neverland brought fresh controversy, Diana Ross defended Michael Jackson publicly. She tweeted, "Stop in the name of love," and asked for compassion. The reaction was split. Some praised her loyalty. Others criticized the message. Yet it showed her voice still carried enough force to spark a worldwide conversation.